Today is Tuesday. I'm trying to remember it without looking. Today is Tuesday, November 10th. And I'm Fran Duval, your host for today, and I'm delighted that our first guest today is Dr. Sonia Bethel, our Medical Center Director. Good morning, Dr. Bethel.
Well, good morning to you. How are you today?
I am doing well. That's not a medical question, right?
It could be.
I'm doing fine.
Good.
Now, so you're here. Usually you come on once a month, right?
Yes.
And give us some sort of updates of the medical center or whatever the current issues are.
Yes, that's right.
And I think you're about to tell us.
Well, I am. I chose to talk today a little bit about preparing yourselves for the winter and the kinds of organ systems that are affected and your general well-being that can be affected by winter, by change in temperature, and being closely quartered because you don't go outside as often. So the first thing, of course, I wanted to talk about is prevention of flu. And I hope that everyone who's listening has already had a dose of high-dose influenza vaccine. If you haven't by chance, you may just now walk in to the medical center and request a flu shot. And we're thinking that we probably will do one additional clinic in each of the major buildings. So stay tuned for when that might be happening because we really want to capture every opportunity to give someone protection against influenza. And the other thing that you might want to really consider is making sure your family members and folks that you come in contact with outside of Green Spring that they also get vaccinated because that's something that may not necessarily happen. Okay. We want to talk about the fact that as the temperatures get cooler, that you want to always protect your body from hypothermia. So if you have to be outdoors for any period of time, you have to make sure that you dress appropriately because you don't want to get hypothermic. That can be, of serious concern. There should be minimal reason for you to have to walk when it's icy, but in case you do have to do that, be extra specially careful where the correct shoe coverings and of course walk slowly and hold on to surfaces wherever you can. Because you're going to be indoors, you want to make sure that you are protecting yourself from causing any fires. Make sure that your smoke detector is working and functioning properly and the batteries are updated and those kinds of things, which could be very problematic. You also want to try to prevent falls. Now, one thing that was mentioned in this article that I hadn't really focused on before was the fact that you want to try to prevent any extreme differences in light within your apartment from room to room, because that can certainly make you at risk for falling. You want to keep some sort of low-level light in a room, like a night light, in rooms that you might be visiting during the night, like the bathroom. Of course, you want to make sure that there are no rugs that are, not tethered, so that you won't fall in that way. And any cords should also not be left, without being attached or being tied down, that kind of thing. You want to really be careful about strenuous activities like shoveling snow. Hopefully that won't need to happen. You can take that off your list because you do live here at Green Spring and that becomes a non-issue. The other thing you might want to think about, which you wouldn't necessarily focus on in the wintertime, is dehydration. We focus on that in the summer a lot because it's hot and of course you get thirsty and you drink. But in the wintertime, you might not really focus on that so much. But you still want to get 6 8-ounce glasses of water every day to avoid dehydration, okay? Because if you do get dehydrated, of course, that makes you more at risk for upper respiratory infection. It can affect your joints if you have, arthritis in your joints, kidney stones, all of those things would be affected by dehydration. The other area that you probably should focus more on is your skin. You need more moisturizer on your skin, in the wintertime. So you might want to consider moisturizing while the skin is still moist. You can decrease the frequency of your showers. You might also want to decrease the water temperature if that's possible at all. And as you step, before you step out of the shower, go ahead and apply moisturizer even before you towel dry, because the moisture will absorb a lot better on moist skin than it does on totally dry skin. So that's something to kind of think about. You want to avoid the extremes of temperature as best you can. So, of course, extremely cold or extremely hot temperatures. And you want to protect yourself from wind damage if you can. Another area that you might not think about so much in the wintertime are allergies. We focus on blossoms and grass and things that are more active when the weather's warm. But in the winter, if you have a dust or a mold allergy, it can be a lot more problematic, during the wintertime. And that would be a problem until we get a first really good frost, okay? So you want to really be mindful of that. If you have indoor pets, of course, you become, more sensitized towards being exposed to them. Cleaning products, would be something that you also would get exposed to, and you want to be careful about that. And one other issue that I read about had to do with decorations. As you start putting up your holiday decorations, they can have a lot of dust. So please be careful when you're doing that and make sure that those decorations are dust free, okay? You want to probably have an exhaust fan available so that you can circulate the air. You want to see about changing the filters in your heating and cooling area as often as possible, and make sure that they are high efficiency filters to remove as much of the potential allergens as possible. You might consider getting a dust-proof mattress cover, okay? You might want to think about the temperature of the laundry of your washer, that you want it to be as hot as possible to remove as much of the allergens as possible. And you want to avoid pets, if you just don't have to have them in your immediate space. But I know for some people, pets they're part of the family.
Part of the family,
It would be hard to imagine not having a pet in your immediate environment.
Right.
But just consider that can be allergy producing. The other area that was mentioned has to do with that it can be a very stressful time, holiday time. We think of it as being a time of celebration, and it is, but it can also be, very stressful, particularly if you've just lost, a family member, or if you have family members that live a far distance away and they won't be able to travel to see you, or you can't travel to see them. So you can have, those times that will really be an issue. So you really want to focus on self-care as much as possible. You want to avoid any situations that might have negative experience for you. You want to do walking or whatever that really feeds your spirit, and do more of that during these times. Even when you're out and about or shopping or whatever, and everything seems so festive, if you have issues that are disturbing you, that can really just have a negative effect on you. And you probably also want to prioritize your tasks so that you don't become overburdened, because that can become stressful as well. If there are people that you absolutely don't have to buy gifts for, just say, well, I did a card, or I did a call, or something, so that you don't feel pressured to do that. I know a lot of residents say that instead of gifts, they give money to their children, grandchildren, or whatever, and that's fine also if that's what you choose to do. But just remember that you can become just overcommitted, and then that can be very stressful for you. The other area that we wanted to talk about had to do with food, because this is a time where most people tend to overeat. I say to people, from the day before Thanksgiving until January 2nd, you're just on a total, food feast, because there's so many activities and almost everything requires food. So you want to still be mindful of the types of food that can produce energy but are not necessarily high fat. And it doesn't mean that you have to avoid everything that is tasty to you or is pleasurable. You can have a small quantity of something and still say, oh yeah, well I tasted that, I don't know, lemon meringue pie or whatever, but you don't have to have a full piece. And so, you know, you want to just say, well, if I have that, then maybe I have to cut back on my eggnog or my apple cider or whatever, so that you can, you know, make choices and still make healthy choices. And one author suggested that if you're going to an event, just immediately get a bottle of water and carry it around with you, so that when you're visiting the various food stations that you're not feeling hungry because, you know, you're already having water. So that's just, you know, just a tip that you might want to, you know, take advantage of. And also remember that if you look at something and you think, it might be okay, might not be okay, unless you really love it, then just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Because those are calories that you could use for something that you might
Exactly.
really enjoy. Yep.
You know, so many of the areas that you spoke of,
Mm-hmm.
because we live here, some of them get, like you said, with the snow shoveling.
Right.
But things like filter changing, that if one needs to change them more frequently than the twice a year, that can be arranged through general service with very little effort, and numbers of other things, even the food issues. Living here, we are luckier to have some
Yes.
controls that we don't have to go seeking ways to do this or that.
Absolutely right.
You know, we have about another minute. And by the way, I wanted to mention a lot of the stress-related things. The medical center offers help in that regard
Yes.
as well,
Absolutely.
with Pat Farrar, and so I just wanted to mention that.
Absolutely.
That you're not alone in dealing with some of these stressful issues.
That's very important, yes, because, you know, you were saying that it is very fortunate that you live here, and there are a lot of mechanisms already in place to help you deal with, you know, a lot of challenges that you might have if you were
Right.
living outside. Yes, we do have a clinical nurse specialist in mental health, Pat Ferrari, and she sees patients in the medical center and in Garden Ridge. And so if there are any concerns, you can self-refer, or when you're in talking to your primary care doc, then that person can also refer you
Right.
to Pat Ferrari. Medical center is, you know, alive and well. We are searching for a new practice administrator, and hopefully that person will be in place over the next several weeks. And we should soon also have a brand new medical assistant. Otherwise, everybody that's there should be familiar. 'Cause they've
And
been
who
with us.
is the new medical assistant?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
Oh, I shouldn't ask.
That's okay.
I should only ask questions I know the answer to.
That's right. Her first name is Mary, but that's as far as I can go with that.
Okay. All right. Well, she's that new then.
She's not there yet. She
Oh,
starts
she's not
next
even there
week.
yet. Oh, okay. All right. Great. Thank you, Dr. Bethel, for coming today. And we look forward to your next visit. And we'll
you.
abide by many of the recommendations that you have told us about today. Stay tuned.